Right, so good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the last Strategy, Finance and Risk Committee meeting, Tuesday the 11th of June 2024. It's a week of lasts. A reminder about health and safety: if the alarm sounds, we make our way to the nearest emergency exit, and we're not at the Bay of Plenty Regional Council building, so I'm assuming that we gather on the other side of the road here and await instructions from staff. Where am I? Here?
Side street.
That way? That way. Okay, as long as everyone knows it's that way. Out that door and that way. We are live streaming the meeting, and the video is publicly available on YouTube, and a reminder to turn your mobile phones either off or onto silent. Shad, can we ask you to open with a karakia, please?
Kia ora tātou, ki a koe rā Anne, I whakahaere nei tēnei huihuinga, tēnā koe, huri ake rā ki a tātou katoa. Nō reire, me tīmata rā tātou, kia noi tātou. E te atua nei rā mātou I huitahi nei, ka tuku rā ngā whakamoimitu ki a koe. Nō reire, manakitia rā tātou I ngā ahotanga I ngā take, e kōrorohia nei rā tātou I tēnei rā. Ko te tumanako, ko te wawata hoki kia whaihua, kia whaihura I tika mā tātou katoa. Nō reire, te atua tēnei mātuine, tēnei ki a koe. Korore ki tō ngā tapu. Āmeni.
Thanks, Shad. So we have apologies from Matiri for lateness, but we also have apologies from Te Pio and Bruce for lateness. Our instructions weren't clear enough to them and they've gone to the wrong building, but they're on their way. So would someone like to move that we accept those apologies for lateness, please? Bill and Wayne, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against carried. Thank you. There's no one in the public forum. We don't have any late items, but we have a supplementary agenda. Is that right? So there's no late items, but we've altered the agenda. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a late payment.
I've got here there is a late item. No? Okay. Okay. Right. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Took the scenic route.
Yeah, good. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Welcome. We're just starting, so you haven't missed anything. The Regional Council are very kind to loan us their rooms, but they're only available on Monday.
I can tell you from personal experience, they're empty at the moment.
Oh, is that right?
It's very dark in here. I'm watching a movie.
Okay. So no late items, no confidential business transferred into the open, no change to the order of business. Minutes of the last meeting held on the 13th of May. Any corrections to the minutes? No? Would someone like to move there a true and correct record? Stephen and Wayne? Oh no, you weren't there. And Shad? Okay, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against carried. Any declaration of conflicts of interest? Oh. That brings us to the business for the day, and the first paper up is the Outcomes Measures Baseline Report, and Jeremy's going to come and talk to that. Yep.
Largely a bit of housekeeping, but this builds on what we brought to you in December last year. So in December we effectively closed out the Our Direction project, which involved the two strategies, a bunch of action investment plans, and we told you we'd come back with a baseline report on the outcome measures, which will subsequently be measured annually and reported in the annual report. That's what we've done. It's not entirely complete. There's a couple of work in progresses as you work through it. But we said we'd come back before 30th of June, and we were back on the 11th of June. I'm happy to work through them if you like, or you can just look at them by exception, but basically we've tried to find from the measures which were set in the strategies and for each outcome, the best data set we could that we can access on a regular basis. Some of those are annual, some of them are more frequent than that, some of them are less frequent than that. But we tried to find the right source. Those sources may change over time, but this is where we're starting from, this is the baseline.
I'm not sure that we need to go through them one by one, do we? No? No? But there's some really interesting ones in there, some measures. So you've taken them from, you've taken your measures from a range of areas, is that right?
We've taken the requirement to measure from the strategies that you adopted, and then we've taken the source from the best available position that would answer that question effectively. What's the best data set which we've got access to that we can then share with our community and monitor over a period of time?
Goes to show what a valuable resource the vital updates provide us with really, really good data, don't they? Any questions for Jeremy? Yep, Bruce.
Thank you, Anne. So that just does get me to probably some obvious questions, Jeremy, probably given my background. And I'm just focused on page 34, which is future work and next steps, and you're indicating that we'll report this annually through our annual reports. And by the way, I like this. This is really good. This is much better than output reporting, and I think it's much more meaningful in the long run. But is it additional information, or will it be subject to audit?
The measures are in the LTP from 1 July 2024 onwards, so the answer will be yes.
Okay, so that raises the question, you're comfortable that we've got the systems and processes in place, because quite rightly they will be audited and therefore that will be subject to scrutiny.
Yeah, there was a conversation between Josh, and Josh is the team leader who's responsible for this stuff, and audits, and if we present them in the front of the annual report, there's less onus, but our intention is that these will be as robust as the key performance indicators in the back half of the document. So a bit of a yes and no, Bruce.
I like that, and I mean, I hope everybody can be pragmatic around this, because I think we want to preserve these rather than anything else. And if it's okay with you, I just have a couple of other questions, if that's okay. So just make sure I got the right question here. Yeah, Jeremy, on measure 16, adaptation for climate or natural hazards. The baseline is 13,915 total risk factor. Can you just explain that for me? I thought, oh, but gee whiz, I should know what the risk factor is, but I have no idea in the wide world. So can you enlighten me, please?
It's an in-house thing. I questioned the same one when it came through for review. Basically, for each project, there are a bunch of risk factors which are standard, and we rate them, which eventually becomes a 0 to 100 rating. I don't actually know whether there's 10 risk factors and 1 to 10, or whether there's 20, 1 to 5. But there's a bunch of risk factors, and they've been through each of those projects and saying, what are the risks? And eventually that adds up to 13,915, which is an awkward, ugly number. And this is one of the ones, it's not noted as a work in progress, but it's open to refinement over time, perhaps. But we've got something, and we've got something with a methodology, which we can then repeat in the future.
Brilliant. I like that idea, and I'm happy that and I think this is actually, and from my perspective, having been involved in this game for a while, it's actually, that's where I want the pragmatism. Let's take something which is the best start and then get it moving rather than look for perfection. Hey, look, and the only final question I had, it was measure 51, Jeremy, creating a hub for the city region in Upper North Island. It's a really good aspiration. I just wondered whether the measure actually really reflected that, which was average daily number of pedestrian movements in the city.
That's 1/5 of the measure. So if you look at right at the top of the page, the intention over time is to measure footfall, residential offering, commercial activity,
Right.
recognition effectively of feelings, and then another feelings you type on scale of regional offering. We haven't got the sources for the other ones yet. This is part of the work in progress. So
Yeah.
footfall is 1/5
Sweet.
of your answer.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's good. Thank you, Anne.
Yes, I think, I mean, some of them you've got quite definitive data, and then others are best endeavours. So, and some of them are about feelings too, and that's always hard to measure. But I think it's a really good start. Yeah, Bill.
Thanks, Chair. Just we're measure 50. This is working beyond Tauranga, and it's probably not so much a question but a comment, really to ensure that in terms of that measurement it doesn't just become a numbers game, because we've worked hard the last 3.5 years in terms of partnership and relationships with central government, and that has its challenges, but be that as it may, as opposed to a transactional approach. So I was just concerned it doesn't develop into we've had this amount of engagement or X engagement. So it was really just for some further thinking around. I don't have a how we measure that, but certainly long as it doesn't go back in terms of just a transactional approach.
If that was initially phrased as the question, that was my answer. Because the tricky bit is working out how we measure that, which is why this is one of those work in progress ones. It is about softer stuff, yeah.
But you could, I mean, there are some live examples. So the work that has been done between Western Bay and Tauranga on the SDP. There's the city deal that's being developed sub-regionally. There'll be a regional provincial investment fund, maybe. So there's some quite significant, I think, measurements that can be included in this. And I mean, I've just come from hearing the Minister of Finance talk about the budget, and she talked about their priorities, and then she talked about the priorities for Tauranga of infrastructure. And you know, when you get your Minister of Finance coming to your region and starting to talk about your infrastructure needs, you know that you've actually, and roads of national, and there's 3 roads apparently in our region included in the roads of national significance. I've missed ones along the line, obviously, but you know, those are the sorts of things when they talk that we can be including in here.
And I think inevitably that will be the answer if we're writing that measure today. The crossover is Bruce's first question, which is how is this repeatable and auditable later on. So writing that down in a way which will recognise what we're going to do in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time, that's the tricky bit. But the answer at the moment, if we were to publish that measure, and we will as part of the annual report this year round, is pretty much that speech, yeah.
I'm interested in the crossover and alignment with the KPI reporting process, which there is quite a lot of alignment. And what I particularly like about that is its graphical interface. So just kind of thinking about how this might be presented when we come about it, because many of these measures, the trend is actually the meaningful part. So that graphical interface could be quite valuable in painting a picture of hopefully continuous improvement. But the other query I had was under measure 37, I was sort of a little bit surprised we didn't have a congestion kind of measure. The closest we get to it is the ease of freight movement, and that is important. But I've also been fairly consistently harping on about commerce and wider business as opposed to just the heavy trucks. And given the significance of small business to the city, having a better feel for congestion over the wider network rather than just a strategic freight network, I think would be an important measure. And that will also indicate performance for Joe Bloggs and their motor car as well.
Yeah, and I'd have to check it. I haven't got it to my fingertips, but the past several years we've had a genuine congestion KPI. So you've got the outcome measures and you've got the service KPIs. I believe it still sits in there. We used to measure 5 or 6 sites around the city and look at that time of congestion. You know, the rush hour is now 6 rush hours, that sort of thing. So I think that's still in there. I'm pretty confident. I can definitely check it. Noted that one. It's James Woodward is involved with how this stuff gets presented eventually, and Josh is involved in that. Yep.
expenditure being around the Our Direction framework, which is also how we've got the KPI. So those things should get, we
Yes,
get the alignment, and that would use the same structure. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Chair. Again, taitoko everything that's gone beforehand, because I'm a fan of these sort of desktop sort of reporting. You get a snapshot of what's going on. I might be asking how long's a piece of string, but some of your baselines, I gather this is being put together and you're still, it's a work on, but have you got time frames for the ones that have no baseline data available? Like you're trying to, within a sort of a calendar year, or have you got a finite when that data should be in there and it's a complete report and moving forward?
You show me your ball string, I'll tell you how long it is. The intention was to get the whole thing done by the 30th of June. We're not quite there. Yeah, one or two of them we're just going to work out what the answer is, what the right way to measure it is. We may have the data now, we just haven't quite got across the line on that. We thought we'd rather bring you 90% than bring you nothing. And particularly with the committee disbanding from today, there's a lot of effort has gone into this over the last couple of years with this committee, and we just wanted to close out with the committee with where we got to.
Just a comment in respect of measure 26 on page 49, the affordability of housing. I don't have a problem with what's there, but when you look at the baseline, it talks about house value, 9.1 times average income, mortgage payments, weekly rental. You look at the target and it says increasing. So it's not till you go to the note that it actually all makes sense in terms of the target. So there might need to be some reframing of that. So, because at first blush you think, oh, this is a very odd target. But the thing being is that you've got to go to the note in terms of it's about the ratio of average income to average house price for the target then to make sense. So yeah. So it's just some clarity around that.
Kia ora. Ko te mea tuatahi a ka mihi ki a koe shared me tō karakia I whakawāte ai o tō tātou nei hui I te rangi nei. O tira a ki a koe Anne, te kai whakahaere o tēnei hui, a ki a tātou katoa, kia ora. I just wanted to firstly thank you for this report. It was really great to have a read through some of the measures, and I wanted to pick up on the Te Ao Māori measures. I first went to measure 46 around cultural capability and see that that has no baseline available, which is quite interesting for me because I understand that there have been Te Reo Māori or pronunciation training, Te Tiriti o Waitangi training, but then that also directed me to measure 7, which is Te Kete Arohe Cultural Connections metric, which has the baseline there. And I suppose it comes back to what Wayne was saying around those areas that have no baseline data available. I'm just questioning here why measure 46 has no baseline data available when I have an understanding that it currently is, there is training within Tauranga City Council. So by looking at this, it looks like we aren't doing anything here, nothing's happening, and we're just building into it now. So do you have any comment on that?
Yep, yeah, so this is part of the work in progress again. If you look at the relevance section, it kind of starts to list the things we are doing. Basically, we've got to a stage where we're not quite sure which bits of that we'll sort of count on a regular basis. So we've got baseline data, we just don't know which bits of the baseline data to use in perpetuity. So again, we're 80% of the way there, but not nailed.
Okay, ka pai. Yeah, I just thought I would highlight it because I know the council does some really great work internally around Te Ao Māori and all the relationships, and we knew if you're reading this cold, it may come across as we're not doing anything right now.
When we publish it, it will be complete though.
And annual report 23-24, while that's not a report against the LTP, we're going to use this upcoming annual report as the dry run. which will include all the base data you got here, plus the extra stuff we haven't got right, and we'll change increasing to improving, and make sure that's nailed. And then the first time of it real will be in 24-25, and that will start to create those trends, Stephen, because we've already got the 23-24 results and previous results for ones where we've got baseline before that. So we're starting to create that story over time rather than just dive in 24-25 with a single number.
Turn that baby on. My question really just follows on from the data that we're collating around housing, affordability, and I think I raised it when we were looking at the annual report, is including some metrics, some data around Māori land, the number of our 11 marae that sit in Tauranga City Council, and then the work that with Andy and others around identifying. So we've got the number of consents that have been done. I think it would have been useful in terms of responding to the housing figures around the number of consents that were issued over Māori land. I suppose I'm just identifying that there's that gap that exists. We worked hard over the last couple of years around identifying those numbers internally around housing on Māori land. You currently have that data available, and I think it can be included in here in terms of a metric that kind of reflects the amount of land that we've got in TCC, reflective of our Māori communities in terms of the 11 marae that reside here, and then the number of consents, and then that future opportunity is around how we move forward. And so, how Bill was just raising around the affordability issue, then clearly there's some form of alignment around future KPIs, because at the start of the report it talks around the opportunity around looking forward and using the data to assist us in moving that. So I think if we haven't captured or utilised the data that we've got on Māori land and Māori housing, then we won't be able to move it forward.
I'd say while we capture it at the moment, I guess the conversation is where we publish that, where we include that, and I think the evolving nature of data sets like this is always an open conversation. So while we've got the 56 here, 53 here at the moment, that doesn't mean we won't add to things in the future. These ones are simply reporting off those strategies as they stand at the moment, the key ones. But we can add things. I'm happy to talk to Andy and Josh and work out the best place to use that data through the annual report or in the future.
And actually it's not really about the report, but I think the context in terms of this is our final meeting, and we've got an opportunity, I think, in terms of the metrics and the information that's contained here, which is really, really good. I think perhaps one of the opportunities, well, I don't know if we're doing it or not, and so I suppose I'm just raising it here, is a review of this committee. That's the next item? Perfect. So shall I move this one?
It was moved. You can second it?
Hey, I'll second it.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tapia. So do I take it from that, Jeremy, because I think Tapia's raised quite a good point about the availability. I mean, it has been a big issue for us, the availability and it's not just the availability of Māori land, but the actual amount of land that we've consented for housing, or the number of papakainga development contributions. There must be some metrics that we can put in to show that, to reflect that, because when you look at, so we've got it comes under that well-planned city. We've got affordability of housing, perceptions of housing affordability, housing intensification, resident satisfaction. I mean, even the use of the Tauranga Urban Design Panel to not have, welcome Mātari, to not have another metric in there that actually measures how we're going with working with mana whenua to bring their land through. I think that would be very helpful, and it just keeps a focus on it.
Chair, if I may, through the chair, and Te Pio would probably be in a better position to make comment, but from memory and my work in this space some years ago, I think you'd be surprised. It'd be material, I think, if you gathered that data. B, yeah. So it was a funny way of me asking my question. I was giving a bit of a nudge. When can some of these things drop, and then you can get into the detail. But it'd be an exercise worth doing, because I think it'll be material as to the drive towards that affordable housing. And
The metric that's missing is that spread of housing, the different types of housing. So Māori housing is one, social housing is another, versus the private. Yeah. So maybe that's another metric than we could then, because we'll have the Papakainga development contributions.
And through the smart growth implementation plan, there is, I can't remember, it's renamed a couple of times, housing system plan, and I think the intention is the housing system plan will also be measuring at a sub-regional basis those things. So we just need to make sure we've got, and that's something that's going to be discussed at the smart growth implementation group on Thursday, that we've got alignment between what smart growth's measuring and what we're measuring, so they flow them through, otherwise we end up with different things. So I absolutely agree with your point. We just need to make sure that those dots are connected.
For me, that's the missing bit in the housing story, in here. All right, so it's been moved and seconded, and you've taken notes of those issues that have been raised. Any further discussion? All right, good work. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate. Yeah, that's right. Yes. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Okay, Te Pio now. So this next item, really, we asked the staff to put something on because we wanted to have the opportunity to reflect on the fact that when the commission was appointed, the previous council that had been fired, I suppose, is that the word? Disestablished? Well, they weren't disestablished because they were still actually sitting councillors. So. Relieved of their duties, thank you. We had quite a discussion about how we preserved what mana whenua had achieved in the committee structures, and to have a position on committees that was voting and a representation based on on expertise, nominated by Te Rangapu, and we wanted to try and keep that. So that's what we had before. We formed this committee because obviously there's only 4 commissioners. We didn't need that big committee structure that will probably come back into being when the new council's elected. But we wanted the opportunity to have the discussion around the table, the benefit of having those mana whenua, mana whenua reps and someone with Bruce's knowledge and expertise sitting around the table with us while we were working our way through some really interesting conversations like local alcohol policies, but strategies. We put together the vision and the values and the action and investment plans, all of which, is a significant part that we're handing on to the incoming council. So we did want to have the opportunity to discuss then what we felt should happen going forward and what recommendations we should be making from this committee through to the incoming council. So that's my opening starter. But Te Pio, did you want to make a comment?
Kia ora, Anne. Kia ora tata katoa. Yeah, I do. This is exactly the conversation that we need to have in reporting and putting recommendations back to the incoming council. I think it's incumbent upon the four of us sitting around the table to express the added value around having tangata whenua or mana whenua participating at this level of the decision making for Tauranga City Council. And so from mine, and I'm sure from everyone sitting around the table, the opportunity to ensure that the relationship between the Tauranga City Council, Te Rangapu and Mana Whenua is continued to be enhanced through the opportunity of like you were saying, in terms of the appointment based on skill and experience to these committees, I think is an important stepping stone to moving forward, and that I don't. Well, yeah. From our point of view, it's definitely a positive step. I've never heard or heard, or maybe I've just missed it, but it'd be interesting to see the comments from the wider community around having mana whenua sitting here, because clearly we can only see positives, and I haven't seen negative comments around not having mana whenua sitting at the table, and so to me it adds just like the discussion that we're just finishing really around addressing those priorities that mana whenua have raised significantly around addressing the housing issue, addressing the other I would say well-being issues that our communities have. Clearly mana whenua and when we're involved at the project level are continually pushing the balance between growth and development with the protection and enhancement of te taiao. And so we need to be demonstrating that that those issues are significant for not only mana whenua hapu marae whānau, but for the wider community as well. And we can see that that this opportunity is just strengthening that opportunity and also adding value for those that are sitting at the table. I did express to my other colleagues last week that I've learnt a great deal around sitting at this table, and a lot of just a different perspective to those that are discussed. I'm going to say when I go home to the marae or at the rangapu, that there are values and perspectives that come from the huge experience that the commissioners bring to the table, and I think that's the learning that we have, is that it's that the opportunity to learn from one another, the opportunity to broaden our knowledge base, and understanding around what the mana whenua view is around the growth and development for Tauranga City, for the Western Bay, and what those I think it is rooted around the economic development of the city, which provides the opportunity, for our whānau to be employed, to stay in Tauranga Moana, to be educated in Tauranga Moana, to bring our tamariki mokopuna up in Tauranga Moana, so that they have that, the clear identity around Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Pūkenga, our respective hapu and marae, that they are Tauranga Moana, and that opportunity pushes forward into, like I say, economic, social, and obviously the protection of the moana is significant for us. So, yeah, I'll just open with that. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I just wanted to kind of add to that too, from a local government perspective, and it's in the report as well, is that local government does have responsibilities to provide for Māori decision making, or participation for Māori to participate in decision making processes. And from, I suppose, the last 3.5 years, we've had colleagues sitting around our table, so that's one opportunity. The other is through Te Rangipu, and they provide advice through council's policy development and projects at a place-based level. Well, actually from a council project base, but also the standing committee. That's another opportunity where the Māori community have an opportunity to engage at a place base, and we'll be at Waikari tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll be checking through a number of those projects, or those projects that we started 3.5 years ago, and to see where we've landed on some of those, or what further work needs to be done. And then there's the role that council does kind of broadly, like through Smart Growth and others. I mean, it just adds to that richness of the conversation, to the opportunity, I suppose, that mana whenua have, given our long association with the area, with resources, and can provide that kind of insight. I think from my perspective, I think it's hugely valuable having mana whenua around the table, but also extended through to Bruce and bringing that lens to the conversation. And then not just the mana whenua perspective, but actually they all bring a various lens given their professional background. So that's another added bonus, I think, of having that, because that all adds to the conversation, adds to the diversity of views and voice to enhance the decisions that council makes.
Thank you, Chair. Just by way of context, mana whenua, we had our own hui last week, just to sort of discuss what we thought we might want to say, and I thought there, we had a great discussion, a great meeting, and had to call it quits because we went on. So all that, I'm sure that will come out today, and there'll probably be a lot of crossover. So we didn't quite know who was going to say what, when, and how. But just to add, and to be so far and shared, I think it is that richness, I think, of having all of us. And I looked at our colleague from the Deep South. Wonderful, as to Bill said, we learn a great deal from sitting around this table, and I hope it comes the other way as well. Te Rangipu, I thought we should really say thank you, because they entrusted us to the reps that sit here today. Had faith that we could sort of have a voice and raise that when required, to which I'd like to think we did on the most part. When the committee was formed, just given the way the political standing was at the time, the previous government was big on this sort of co-governance thing that I was personally always confused with. I didn't quite know how that was going to operate at the coal face for different entities, different sizes. What did it mean? But I do praise TCC. I think it was very brave in the way the committee was structured. It's in the papers itself. I think it was incredibly inclusive, but it proved to be functional as well, which is a great outcome. It's been a pleasure again sitting here. We've discussed, the agendas were fairly wide, as we know, which we did struggle with a little bit. I mean, I can speak from my perspective. It was quite broad. The issues are quite long. The agendas, the papers. There was quite a lot to read there, but we worked through that. We worked with, and again, well, I see Coral there. Coral helped us sort of come to grips with that with briefings, and the likes of Robin and Sarah and others sort of coaxed us through that, got us more comfortable. And again, we sit here today, and I think we really started to add value after we sort of became more comfortable sitting around. But I think I do think it was I think it was a model that had, again, different political position. I think would have been lovely to have gone out. I think you could really go out and promote it, saying this is how it can really work and the richness it brings. So I'm hoping that has shown. I hope people in the community do see that. But I think it's been a wonderful journey, and the outcomes are very valuable and constructive. We will move on later. There was a review a suggestion later that will raise, but I'll leave it at that because I know my other colleagues have got comments as well.
Kia ora. Aroha mai for lateness. I was at another hui prior. I just want to tag along on that same line from my other two colleagues, and I've definitely enjoyed the journey on this trip, and I've learned a lot. Some of the things that are going to be happening once the new elected members come in is that we need to push those same values, you know, and have those hardcore conversations with them as well around tangata whenua representation on these committees, and it has worked well. It worked well, so good that we didn't realise just how much work we're involved in, and I'm talking about Te Rangapu, with the ARPs and the policies, and even sharing or joint submissions as we've been moving forward the last couple of years. So it has been really exciting, but you can feel the sense of you know, togetherness. And you know, it's just we're just going to see and how things are going to be happening after July 20th. You probably hear the same things again tomorrow at the Tangata Whenua TCC committee meeting tomorrow. So and it's pretty much will be about highlighting those Māori representation within council, and we also got a strategic plan too. It's the Arangapu, and part of it is the implementation, which we need to push forward. We need to forget about what's been happening down in central government and just carry on rocking. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I think I just tautoko everything that my fellow tangata whenua reps and Mātiri have said today, and I don't want to repeat anything, but perhaps just take us back to what was here before the commissioners came along, and we did have tangata whenua reps on committees, so that's something that this council already had, but what this commission has done is that you've pretty much supersized that representation on this super strategy, finance and risk committee by pulling all tangata whenua reps together on one board, and it's amazing how much impact we've had sitting at this table and learning from others sitting around, but also sharing of our experiences and our knowledge that we have as tangata whenua representatives in Tauranga Moana. And I just want to pick up on the point that Shad has said. Yes, under legislation, it is about having Māori representation at all levels of decision making, and really, you know, yes, I'm thankful. It was a risk for the commissioners. It was a risk for us. We didn't know what we were involved in, but look, we're still here. Our people haven't kicked us off, and you guys haven't kicked us off either. So we still turn up, even though some of us were late today, but we're here, we make it. And just there is a lot of rhetoric out there in our community, especially of late, around Māori sitting at decision-making level, and I want to make the point that yes, we've had robust discussions, but it's great that this is on the agenda, because if we come back to a review, it is about, let's have a look at what this committee has done. Let's have a look at all those decisions that have been made, and I want it noted that it's not because of tangata whenua that anything has been halted. In fact, it's actually helped this city to develop and grow to a point where we are today. So I just wanted to make that point. Kia ora.
And just adding to what's been said, Chair, I'd like to note, in terms of, certainly in my experience in the last 3.5 years, having that tangata whenua representation and input at the table has been really, really helpful. And acknowledging, in terms of tangata whenua representatives fulfilling the whole role of sitting around the table. So not just focusing on matters related to tangata whenua, but in terms of, as Rahario's outlined, in terms of the well-being of the city. So I'd just like to acknowledge that. But I'd also like to pick up in terms of the value of having someone like Bruce bringing that financial audit and risk expertise to the committee, and given, Bruce, you operate with a number of local governments, and you are lucky in that respect, perhaps, but because of that, bringing the good, the bad and the ugly in terms of those experiences and sharing that around this table. So I'd just like to acknowledge the value of that, and in terms of having that independent expertise also around the table. And with the help of Coral, when we get to it, Chair, there's draft recommendation B. To actually, in terms of a recommendation to the incoming council.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you for those words, Bill. Everybody else, Christine, I think it was you that rang me. You're probably acting chief executive, saying, Bruce, the commissioners were keen to have the independents, or tangata whenua reps and myself, on a committee. I said, oh, that's cool. And then you said it was strategy, policy and risk, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. and it has been, not just because of the much maligned local alcohol policy, and but actually, Bill, it's been, as a service sense, my privilege to actually, learning experience for me, to be involved actually in the strategy side, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And I was in Gisborne the day Peter rang me, Peter Winder, after his disastrous last meeting with the old council. And that's a private conversation, but I was aware of some of his thinking. And it does warrant recognising that in the 1 year I served the old council, Wayne, you were with me on that risk committee, it actually was quite dark days. I wasn't necessarily certain commissioners were the answer. But I'm glad to say at the end of, was it 4 years, that actually that is tremendous. It's tremendous what you folk have achieved. And I'd say this to you personally, but also to your fellow colleagues. You gripped up on the job, and you've made us, I think, this council a local authority, which is superb. So well done to you guys, and I'm sure somewhere further down the track before the end you'll celebrate that in various ways. I want us to reflect, though, that we do leave a risk that we can't control. And it's the transition risk to democracy. I just would like to call out and send a note of support to staff, because we leave, you commissioners leave, and staff are left with the good democratic tradition of what and who are voted in. And democracy is a good thing. I'm a strong defender of it. I'm a strong defender of it in a local context. But this is only the third time in recent memory where staff are faced with 100% newness, even if the elections deliver up some prior elected members. So I think it's important that we recognise that while, and I'm comfortable to support the approach you have taken as commissioners to risk management and the general conduct of Tauranga as a local authority, this is one risk that we have to give them to solve. And as I've said, my feelings are feelings, and my sense of support and encouragement to staff are that the transition goes well. I know you will have a program of onboarding them, of induction, which will be there, and I wish you well as you try and deal with that. I think leave it at this, and risk is both uncertainty and opportunity. And I don't know how the new council will grab that opportunity. But I would just reflect that the combined efforts of you and staff, I consider, leave the incoming council with a very sound basis for going forward. They're accountable for what they do with that opportunity, and I'd say to you guys, well done and a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, look, it's all been said, so I won't expand on the discussion, but I just want to acknowledge actually how much I, as a Pākehā, have learned in my time here as a commissioner, and the involvement with tangata whenua has considerably deepened my understanding and experience as a Kiwi. So I really appreciated that, and you spoke earlier, I think all of you, of having learned a lot, and that certainly was a two-way street, so thank you.
So, you know, I thought it was worthwhile having the discussion on the agenda, and thank Jeremy for outlining the history. The staff it's not the staff's place to go any further because this is a political discussion, but as everyone has expressed, the benefit of sitting around the table with people who come at topics with a different perspective, and we've had the benefit of Mana Whenua sitting here with us for their perspective, and Bruce with his perspective and knowledge of risk and finance across the local government sector, I think has enabled us to make better decisions. And I echo Stephen, I've learned a lot. And I know, you know, we talk about local alcohol policy, but that is an issue that is really strong in our communities, and to be able to have those discussions at one stage, we were pretty well divided, but we worked through that, and not all of us got what we wanted, but that is really how communities feel, because they have different feelings, and we were able to work through that, bringing those different perspectives to play. And to me, that's the benefit of having that sitting around the table. So for commissioners, we have certainly benefited by having that expertise sitting around the table, because you're not just here as Mana Whenua. You're like Bruce, you are actually put here with particular expertise and experience by Rangapu, and they were quite deliberate decisions that were made. So that expertise has contributed to the decisions that we've made. I think it's really critical that we have the opportunity, that we make a recommendation to the incoming council, that they consider how they can make use of that expertise again on an ongoing basis. We're hoping that we don't have a plethora of committees in the next council. Sometimes it has to happen because alliances are formed, and you know the incoming mayor has to reward certain people and give them committee chairs because they get a bit more money and a bit more status. You know, that's the way of the world. It's no different in central government with cabinet ministers. So that might happen, but we have the benefit of the council coming in and sort of starting afresh with a different representation model, and hopefully the incoming council will keep it lean, and that offers an opportunity, I think, to because I think we've benefited by having more than one of you on a committee, and it's made it easier for you to have more than one of you on the committee. So whilst the old model of, you know, a Mana Whenua rep who had voting rights was a huge step forward, and we didn't want to lose that, I think we've taken another big step, and that's a model that you know, I would love to see the incoming council consider as to how we get the best out of you. Because you did have a tough time early on. You know, you all did, and we had those discussions And I think, Wayne, you said to me, God, how do we get all this stuff? And I want to do the real good, exciting bits. And the strategy and policy isn't always the exciting bits. But you did come to the table and you did bring, I think, we've drawn the best of your experience out and your expertise out. So do want to thank you for that. So Bill, what have you put up there? Recommends to the incoming council, tangata whenua representatives recommended by Te Rangapu Mana Whenua o Tauranga Moana, based on relevant skills and experience, be appointed to future council committees as voting members to continue to provide value from a mana whenua perspective and enable opportunities for Māori to contribute to decision making. And C, recommends that an independent member with financial and audit expertise be appointed to the relevant committee as a voting member. And you want to speak to that?
Briefly.
Yes.
No, really some guidance, because
Even today, I signed out a joint submission that we're making on the latest waters bill, where, you know, all the way through that waters discussion with both the old government and now the new government, we have been in lockstep with Rangapu. And that's I think that's just, I know we are the envy of some of other councils because we are like that. So I'd want to include in that D, to the relevant committee, to maintain the ongoing relationship.
In line with exactly the point. Well, I think it's in line with your point. One of the comments that I've had this afternoon, which reflects my experience, is actually the grouping of tangata whenua on one committee. I don't want to say limited to one committee. Wayne, I used to call you the Maori caucus, and the fact that when I met with the commissioners, you were meeting somewhere else with the tangata whenua reps. But that's the strength, and I think we've mentioned that in our comments. Is that something that's relevant, Bill, to have in here, or is that something that's going too far in terms of the resolutions?
Oh, that was what I was looking at. I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can read that properly. That was what I was wondering about in B, whether we... No, I can't read it. No, that's it. Be appointed to future council committees as voting members to continue to voting members. Yeah, and so maybe we almost want them to consider the value of having multiple members.
I wonder whether, can I suggest,
Yep.
you could change it slightly, so you could frame B that in considering and establishing the committee structure for the incoming council, that the following recommendations be taken into account. So what you're really trying to say is, when you're actually setting these up, some of them are direct appointments, but some of them are values.
Yeah.
So if you frame the front end slightly differently, then some of that
She's
would
very
flow
good at crafting these.
a little bit better.
Years of experience.
So I'm just trying
You're going to have a go?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to capture. So if we change B to the Strategic Finance Committee recommends to the incoming council when it is in developing and establishing its committee structure, to take into account the following, and then have
And
bullet
then have bullet
points,
points.
which is, so the following is the value that the tangata whenua reps, or you could either, you can have it, still have it as a recommendation, as a sub-recommendation, so then you'd go B1, or bullet point B1 is the first point, and then you can bring those more value-based comments through as additional so make that one be appointed. So that's all fine. I just make that a B1, the following B1, make that subset 1. Yep, and then the next one becomes B2, and then those other points that you want to make recognises the value could come through as a bullet point or as a sub point.
And then, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
B2. So you wouldn't recommend, you would just say B2 is that an independent member
correct.
with
You
finance.
Could, yep, you could do it that way. Yep.
And D becomes B3,
Yep.
that the chair of the Rangapu is appointed a non-voting member. Yeah. B3. Just get rid of the recommends.
Yep.
That's it. I'm glad to see other people have difficulties with those indents.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I know you will. And then B4 would be that consideration is given to having a number of external members on the committee.
A council this size to actually have 2 independent members on your risk committee actually would be useful as well. I mean, I would argue for an external chair, but that's, you know, I want to be careful how I phrase that, but I think actually leaving it that way, leaving it as multiple independent members is not a bad way to go, because it also allows the possibility that your risk committee, or whatever structure they have, would potentially consider 2 members.
Could include with a range of expertise. Yep. Sorry, what was that? Right, have we got it right now? Do you, Bruce, do you want B2 to be as clear as an independent member, or you could put, yeah, so
Could it be that independent membership with financial?
yes, get rid of the "an", that's it, and add "ship" to member. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that covers it. And the reality is, when I think back to the submission that we made to the Future for Local Government, we actually recommended a hybrid model at the council level of a mixture of democratically elected people and expertise, particular expertise and professional expertise, which is what our other members have provided here to this committee.
May I, Chair, just to support what Bruce said, what we saw prior to commissioners coming on, it would have gone a long way to helping those committees, what we've captured there, because there was a sweet spot period there where we thought we could get them across and bring everyone up to speed, and we just missed that opportunity, not by much, but this structure, and if those appointments were made with the relevant competencies and skills, it'd go a long way to consolidate.
Sorry, just a quick query. And I assumed, when we set up the committee, the resourcing that followed, in terms of the appointments to the committee, I assume would follow. So for the incoming council to appoint these members, the resourcing required for each member to participate would follow. Yep.
We're so particular about the chair of Te Rangapu being appointed as a non-voting member. We did that because because the numbers were there was an imbalance, and the commission could be outvoted. So I just wonder whether we need non-voting in there.
I only suggested because
that was what we had.
Happy to remove the non-vote.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to specify it, but it just needs to be considered, because again, it might upset balance. But just to have you sitting around the table as taking part in the meeting, I just wonder whether we should be non-specific. Just a member. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Is it mover and seconder happy with that? Yeah. There we go. Yeah. And that was the discussion I think we had, whether we had 3, because there were 3 on the committees, and Bruce, and that was 4 all. We only got there once. Okay, any further discussion? All right, I'll put that then. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now, in committee, we really only have minutes, so if no one wants to query them, we could pass them in open and it would mean we wouldn't have to go into public excluded, unless anyone wants to talk about anything in them. Thank you, Stephen. Oh, excellent. Thank you. But I'll take Bruce so that his name goes on the minutes. All right, so the minutes from the 13th of the 13th of May, 13th of March, April, 13th of April. Yeah, 13th of April. Yeah. Moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. So that leaves me to bring this meeting to an end. Can I ask, Shad, are you going to close with a karakia, or was it Te Pio, or
Sorry, I've got a mint in my mouth now, so try not to let it drop out. But tuatahi rā ka tuku mihi ki a tātou katoa, me ki rā i ngā hoa mahi, i ngā whanaunga, tātou katoa, i runga i tēnei komiti. Me te mōhio nei hoki ka whiwhiu ngā whakaaro i ngā kōrero, ki ata wānanga hiara wēnei o ngā āhuatanga, ko te tūmanako pia, a te waka ka whakatū tēnei tētahi kaunihera hau, kei reira koutou, kei reira hoki rā te reo o tō tātou iwi hapu whānau, nō reira tuku mihi ki a koutou katoa. Just want to acknowledge, I suppose, as we've done throughout probably most of this meeting, just acknowledging everybody's participation, and as I just said in Te Reo Māori, the hope is that from that recommendation we've just made, that we'll continue to see and hear the voices of mana whenua and others participating into those decision-making processes. So this will be our last meeting, committee meeting, so just acknowledging everybody's input. We'll just close with a short karakia. Nō reira, kia nui tātou. E te atua nei anō rā mātou i huitahi nei, ka tuku anō rā ngā whakamoimiti ki a koe. Ka toro atu rā wēnei reo whakamoimiti ki a koe. Nau i awhina mai, i mana ki te ara tātou, i roto i nei mahi. Ko te tūmanako pia, a te rā marama, tai atu rā ki te mutunga o te tau, ka noho rā wēnei o ngā hoa mahi i Wainganui i te kaunira hau. Nō reira te atua tēnei mātua ene, tēnei ki a koe, korore ki tōnga tapu. Āmen.
Kia ora, Shed. And so the taonga that we hand on to the incoming council is, that we've developed around this table, is a vision for the city, the values that we hold dear in the city, what we want to achieve, what the city wants to achieve, and how to achieve that. And I think from all of us, you couldn't ask for better taonga to hand across. Kia ora tātou.